welcome everybody to Getting Hired in AI, the spotlight on early careers. My name is Adam Renkosinski, and I'm pleased today to be here and share the stage with four exceptional people. We're not in this order, so I'm not Santoshi, just so you know, but we'll go in order of the tables here. So first up, Wafiq Syed, who is an analytical lead at Google. Welcome, Wafiq.
Thank you.
We have Nicole Lee, Senior Manager, Artificial Intelligence at Bell. Welcome, Nicole. We have Emily Napier, Data Scientist at Beatdapp. Welcome. And we have Santoshi Tadanki, Leadership Development Associate at RBC. Welcome. Welcome. So today we're going to be talking about a few things today, job-seeking strategies. We're going to talk about the economy, generative AI, and more. You may, at this point, be familiar. At the last bit, we're going to have 5 minutes of Q&A. So if you have a question at that time, feel free to raise your hand. Or for those online, there's a form you can submit questions to. And after that, we're going to transition to networking. So audience, are we ready? Should we jump in? We need more noise, more noise. Okay, good. Very nice. Okay, so our first question, we just want to do a bit of short introductions here. So 30 seconds from our panelists in terms of themselves, their role, and then another 30 seconds just to talk about how they found or got their role, if they had any particular strategies in finding that. Maybe we'll just go straight down the line.
Sure, yeah, thanks Adam. Thanks everyone for having us and organizing such a wonderful event. I'm Wafiq, so hands up if you've ever been interrupted while watching a YouTube video and interrupted by an annoying YouTube ad. So big companies pay Google for those YouTube ads, as well as Google search ads, the ads you might see on Gmail. And my role specifically, I work in the ads division of Google. And so ads makes up about 85% of our revenue when it comes to Google. And my role specifically is to help prove and maximize the return on investment that clients make when it comes to ad investment. So more specifically, we help prove that their ad investment actually helps them grow as a business. And then we help them use their first party, their own data, to actually leverage our algorithm to work better, show ads to the right customer, show the right copy at the right time in order to convert at a higher rate. So pleasure to be here, and looking forward to discussing with you.
Hey everyone, my name is Nicole, and I manage a team of data scientists and developers at Bell. So I have kind of a combination role. I'm a product owner for our repair troubleshooting application. So what we have is we have a reinforcement learning model that we've built into several troubleshooting tools to help try and fix internet problems. And then I manage my team as well as the product itself. To get my role, I kind of took a probably less traditional path than all of you. I did my undergrad in mechanical engineering, and I started more in the data analytics space. And at the time, AI was new-ish to large industry, so it was kind of being in a good place, being good at working with large sets of data that helped me move more towards the AI space.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm a data scientist at Beatdapp, and Beatdapp is a company that detects streaming fraud in the music industry. So we work with both labels and digital service providers to find fraudulent activity, which can mean botnets streaming music to capture royalties. So we build AI models that help detect this activity, and we report it to our customers. So I lead a team of data scientists and data analysts who build these models. And I got into this role mostly through Vector. So I was doing my master's degree at Dalhousie and applied for the Fastlane internship program here at Vector, and ended up working with Beatdapp and getting hired full-time. So.
Now? Okay, love that. Wow, it's incredible to be here with some extremely talented panelists, and I do think they've covered a whole range of careers, because I think my role is slightly different from what a lot of the people here are doing. Similar to a lot of you, I'm an engineer. Post-engineering, I sort of went the consulting route. So I used to consult Fortune 500 companies with a focus on data science solutions. So worked as a data scientist, published, did all of that, was in research for a bit. But then I really liked being at the intersection of technology and business and math. So I went to Schulich School of Business here, where I did my MMAI. So that's a business and artificial intelligence program, which I was honestly like so conflicted about, like going to business school after working very hands-on. But it was a fantastic experience. And during my time there, I was working with RBC and doing a part-time internship at Vector and my full-time program. It was an intense year. But Vector was instrumental in kind of helping me really pave my way forward, because at the time I was very conflicted in the kind of role I want to pursue. Did I want to continue being a data scientist, or would I want to go, the consultant route, or do something very intersectional like the role I have now? So my job description as a leadership associate is basically non-existent. But jokes aside, it's very focused on driving impact, again, at the confluence of applied data science, technology, and really getting it consumed in a usable fashion. So, it's a rotational program every few months. I'm working on different things, but as of now, I've been working on AI strategy. I was building a generative AI product, and essentially wearing many different hats. So it's so exciting to be in a room full of people really trying to figure that out and be a part of the conversation. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you. So there you heard it, very different backgrounds and different strategies. I want to check in now with our audience here, because the next question, we're going to talk about the economy. And so how about this? Give me a thumbs up if you've been looking for work recently and you found it pretty smooth, lots of traction, or a thumbs down if it's been the opposite case. We'll get a crowdsource. Online, you probably have this. Okay, so in this room, I know online you can't really see. In this room, it's the Great Depression, I think, is what if I'm seeing this correctly. So maybe I should rephrase my question here. So if you were graduating during the Great Depression, if it was the early 1900s, and we had evolved AI much quicker, is there advice that you could give people in that situation for standing out in a tough job market, for whoever has an opinion on that? Oh. Opinion, no mic, you said, yeah.
Yes, opinion, no mic, but now that I have both. I think, funny story, so when I was in business school, ChatGPT released, and we were so excited because we're like, okay, this means we're all going to have jobs lined up, but fast forward to when we actually graduated, turns out just 20% of the cohort, and that was just, last year, so 2023, 20% of the cohort had jobs in hand, extremely skilled, very talented, very employable. But strangely enough, because of the support I received from Vector and just I feel like the data science community in Toronto, I had 3 jobs in hand. And I do not think that was a coincidence. I feel like if you have a strategic approach to applying for jobs, securing positions, and just how you want to navigate your career, you really set yourself up for success. Core competence is at the heart of it. I think most of you, if you're here, early morning, midweek, chances are you're motivated enough, competent enough, smart enough to be here, and you're doing a lot of the right things. But really positioning yourself for success would involve the N word everyone hates, networking. And trying to identify jobs or places where you are not just a skill set, but a skill set and mindset fit. So really distinguishing yourself from someone else. And I think that comes from a lot of really placing yourself or branding yourself, saying, hey, there might be 50 other data scientists applying for this job, but here's why I stand out. So that's a question each of you should have the answer to. Why are you different as a professional and the value you bring to the table? And maybe the second is being authentic. I think it's, at the end of the day, people want to hire people. You can be a data scientist, you can be a researcher, you can be, business professional, but at the end of it, you're a person. So if you are easier to work with and slightly less intolerable than the other 3 people in the room, chances are you have a better chance of being hired.
I'll jump in as well. I was going to say a very similar thing. I think being authentic is super important. As well, I've done a lot of hiring, largely during like the 2021, 2022 boom, I guess, so to say. So the things that I look for when I'm hiring is I want someone who is passionate about what they work on, and they can tell me with very little potential background knowledge, like what it means, why it's important, and why you care about it. I think like that authenticity and also showing that your passion is those are the main things that I'm looking for. Because honestly, technical skills, like if you have a basis, they can be built. So like you're not going to wow me really with like your code necessarily, but it's what I'm looking for is your passion and your interest and like willingness to learn new things.
Amazing. Awesome. So I want to check in too with the audience on this next question. We're going to use a term now, so I want to see who here has maybe heard of the term. So raise your hand, or I guess online, you can thumbs up us, if you've ever heard of the term generative AI. Anybody? Okay, I have a couple people in the room. So we want to talk about that. We want to talk a bit about, firstly, how it's changing the roles for yourselves personally, your own personal role, but also how do you see it changing other people's roles, maybe in other parts of the economy or other skills that people need to develop.
Cool, I can start. And actually, just before I start, Adam, if it's okay, I want to raise one point on the previous question.
Sure.
So I know today, I think one of the main themes is networking. And I just want to share a story, and probably the story will make Saba cringe, perhaps, so you might want to like cover your ears. But so I got my job into Google through networking as well. So I did a master's and MBA as well. It was a work while you study master's. And so once I finished my master's, and I was still working. I was a PM at Walmart in the data org, brilliant team. I loved my job, but I wanted to break into big tech. And so what I would do is every Monday, I would go on LinkedIn and I would send like 10, 20, even 30 cold DMs, LinkedIn messages to people at companies who could either hire me directly or they could refer me to a role that I would be interested in. And so I would message people at LinkedIn, Google, Amazon, Facebook. I was also interested in health tech, given my undergrad, so I was looking at some health tech startups. And I had my personal goal of having at least 2 coffee chats a week. And so week 1, week 2, week 3, and I had these coffee chats. People were responding. And finally, the 3rd week, I had a coffee chat with a director at Google, and he referred me to the role, and then I got the job. And so it was just a matter of a few weeks. And I say that because networking is probably the most powerful thing you can do given today's climate. And I really empathize with you because it's so difficult. People at our company were also laid off. Microsoft had huge layoffs. So you're not just competing with the people in this room, you're competing with other students, but you're also competing with people who just got let go as well. Of course, there's different roles and kind of different qualifications, but the competition is so difficult. And so what that means is it's even more important to stand out. And so you can do that through networking, but what we mean by networking, at least my definition is people you can reach out to and they at least know who you are. It's someone who you already established a point of contact with. And to make that really effective, and I know, Adam, I'm kind of like spilling over to other questions here, so maybe in the next question I'll sit out. But how you make that more purposeful is you take a step back before you just start reaching out to everyone and think, where do I want to be in the next year? Where do I want to be in the next 5 years? And then where do I want to be in the next 10 years? And so if it's a role at RBC, you want to work with Santoshi at RBC, and it's a certain data scientist role, find someone who's in that role today, find someone who manages data scientists today, and find someone who's the director of data science or someone like Saba, and get advice from them to build your next 2 to 3, 5-year roadmap, whatever it is, and continue messaging those people. And on the side, find out what those roles require and build your portfolio of projects. Santoshi talked about building a brand. Build out a portfolio of projects so that when you approach these people, you can actually talk about, hey, I did X, Y, and Z. What do you think about it? How can I take that to the next level? And that really will help you land a job, just as how it landed myself a job at Google. So really, it's in your hands. You guys are already on the right path, attending events like this, enrolling in programs that are under Vector. Vector helped me go through my master's program. And so I'm so happy and thrilled to even be here to give back in some capacity. But really, you're already on a good start. Now it's just about maintaining that momentum and focusing that momentum in a way that helps you differentiate yourself from the rest of the crowd, especially when the climate is very difficult. So that's my answer to another question, probably another couple questions. But coming to Gen AI, which is super exciting, I'll talk about a few use cases we're actually working on at Google in the ads division in marketing, some that I'm very excited about. So I think the first one that I'm really excited about is actually, maybe we can answer this question in how we use Gen AI today and how we might want to use it tomorrow in the next 10 or 5 years or in the next 3 years at the pace it's going today. So one of the use cases I'm very excited about actually is empowering small and medium-sized businesses with kind of leveling the playing field when it comes to marketing. As an example, if I'm a small business, I'm a restaurant, or I'm an e-commerce company, I don't necessarily have the resources or the talent to create world-class advertisements. And by advertisements, let's take an example of that YouTube ad that we spoke about. Creating a video is difficult. I need the vision, I need a strategy, I need people to actually go shoot a video and then make the creative and launch it into production. With things like text to video, those things become possible. And we're still kind of in that early stage, so this is kind of still what's available tomorrow. But things like this will really help small and medium-sized businesses compete with those bigger guys when it comes to advertising. What's available today, one thing that I'm very excited about is actually adding audio to your ads. So you'll see that even the largest enterprises, they'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on video ads, but there's really no one narrating what that ad is talking about. And so if you were to just, let's say you're driving and you're listening to an ad by a BMO, for example, and there's no one speaking, you might have just heard music and the ad just passed and you didn't even know what the ad was about. And the problem with that is a lot of money was wasted on showing you that ad. But now with things like Gen AI, and it's available already, it was actually available before the whole boom, you can type text, and the actual software, Ads Creative Studio or Google Ads, whatever tool you'd like to use, would actually read out that ad, the actual text you wrote, in any tone you'd like. You have different gender options, you have different tones, so there's like luxury, there's commentators, there's sports commentators, creators, etc., all these different tones. And you can actually type this in, it'll narrate it very well, it's not robotic, and you can put that directly into your ad. And so for that small or medium-sized business, even these large enterprises who don't necessarily have the budget, all you do is type text, and you have your audio, and the ad is launched, and you didn't need to have someone sitting and recording. And that's really important because we do these studies, these brand lift studies, so you might have received like YouTube surveys, right, when you're watching YouTube and it says, do you remember seeing an ad from so-and-so? What we actually do with those surveys is we expose a group of people to the ads, and we hold back the ads from another group of people, and then we release the surveys to both groups. And then we try to measure an uplift in the responses, positive responses. So if it's a TD ad, we try to see, did those who saw the ad, do they respond at a more positive rate than those who did not? But what we see is when you have ads that actually have audio with someone narrating it, saying things like the call to action, invest now with TD or whatever it is, buy now from Lululemon, it leads to an increased brand lift or an increased positive response rate in those surveys. And so I'm excited for that for the small businesses. And the final use case I'll kind of talk about, which is kind of a more moonshot, I show this example often if I'm talking with other clients or even at universities. I wish I had the video today, but there's an example, and I would encourage you to Google when you go home on YouTube or Google Shah Rukh Khan Cadbury. So anyone know Shah Rukh Khan? Okay, great. So he's a Bollywood star, right? Bollywood actor. And so there's Cadbury, which is this chocolate brand in India, and there's hundreds of thousands of these small businesses across India. And a lot of them don't even have like a website. So forget about ads, like they don't even have any digital presence. And what they did was they took Shah Rukh Khan and they recorded him for maybe 10 minutes. They took a video of him talking about Cadbury, the chocolate, and telling people where to shop. And so he would say like, buy now at your local, let's say Walmart, or whatever it is, right? They're convenience stores. These are very small convenience stores. And so they only have really like 10 minutes or an hour to film Shah Rukh Khan, but there are so many of these different businesses that could be catered to, but they just don't have the resources to actually pay Shah Rukh Khan to say, hey, buy at my local convenience store. And so what Cadbury did is they recorded Shah Rukh Khan, and they took his face, and they used deep learning, and they actually changed the words coming out of his mouth to say every single small business that ranged from I think it was like 10,000 to 100,000 stores, so that it would be like, buy at your local, whatever store, buy at your local convenience store, buy at your local Rabba, and he would say the actual name of the store. And because of that, all of these small businesses were empowered with an ad from a top Bollywood star for really no cost, and all of these ads would say, hey, go to your local X store to buy Cadbury chocolate. And so it really gave all these small businesses an edge, and this was especially during the pandemic time where a lot of people weren't really shopping, and it really empowered them to have a digital presence. So that's where I'm really excited about, how it's going to empower these small and medium-sized guys who don't have the capacity or the talent to really compete. That's the direction I'm really excited about when it comes to Gen AI.
Yeah, I guess in terms of how generative AI is going to affect our roles, I think there's a lot of fear for everyone, especially sort of entering the industry about, are my technical skills already useless? Are they going to become useless in the future? So I think there's no replacement for just implementing something yourself. But I think that one of the ways that I use like ChatGPT in particular is to be able to scope out solutions that I think might solve a problem. So particularly being at a startup, there's no shortage of problems that need to be solved, and everyone's trying to fix things as quickly as possible. So I think it can help you scope out what the problem is, what are the possible solutions, and do I actually have the technical skills to solve this? And sort of test your knowledge and figure out how much do I not know about this, and do I need to ask someone else for help? So it can help you figure out what are the technical skills that are needed to solve this problem, and then you can go into your organization and figure out who is probably the best person for this, or can you do it yourself? So I think that's what I find myself using it for.
Awesome. Awesome. And I was thinking too, to when you were mentioning these LinkedIn messages, we didn't say we can use Gen AI, we can craft the LinkedIn messages, and we can, one step taken. Okay, so we'll do one last question, fairly quick, and then we'll want to have some time for Q&A. Saba again has to cover her ears on this one because it is about networking. So in just a few minutes, we're going to be networking in that side of this floor. And so in terms of strategies or recommendations for those in the audience today, how do you make the most of the opportunity? What are your thoughts?
Maybe I could start and just give a bit. I'm sure there's so much to this cake. We'll try with a slice. I think in terms of networking, it would be LinkedIn, of course, but I think one of the best ways to really network is in person, because the pivotal kind of cornerstone to whether you've successfully networked is whether they remember you. So, in that analogous, advertising world, the advertisement is successful if you actually remember it when you need to go in and make a purchase. So when they're hiring, if they can think of you, it means you succeeded at networking. And the best way to really do that is, I think, focus on quality instead of quantity. I get reaching out to 500 people on LinkedIn because traditionally you'll have a very small fraction of those people revert to you. But when you speak to a person, I think really focusing on building a relationship, establishing an authentic connect, that would be a huge differentiator. One of the things I noticed is that when we were applying for roles, everyone was in a frenzy. It was the last term, you're 4 months from graduating, and kind of, you're back in the job market. In business school, a lot of people have already come in with a certain amount of work X, so they're lateral hires. I know a lot of you are going to go in fresh. There's two different categories. So how do you really position yourself? And it was very clear there were two strategies. So there were people who were applying for 50 jobs, 100 jobs. They were just going volume first, go hard. But then I think I applied for 7 jobs. In the last month, there were literally just 7 jobs that I was applying to, that I applied to, but 6 of them reverted, and I actually secured 3 positions. One of them was through Vector. I'd networked through Vector, through an event. I'd met them, and then very similar to what was mentioned earlier, it was a director who'd given me a referral, so it was a top-down referral, which is always more powerful than going in with someone who's a beginner or someone who's an analyst and they're referring you. So that's one thing. The other job was through a case competition. So I know a lot of you will be doing hackathons, competitions. So there you have a value-based interaction with someone. They see you as competent, smart. Clearly you're not, they see you as differentiated from everyone else in the room. So that's one. And the third, which is my position at RBC, so the position I've applied for, leadership associate, is for experienced professionals. They say 3 years and above, and I'm the first associate they've hired with actually just 3 years of experience. And when I went in there, I'd networked with the team, and in my interview, they're like, do you have a few questions? And I went in and I said, I spoke to your team and I noticed you're missing this, and this, and that's what I can add as an AI professional. Traditionally, this role is for people who come from a business background. So I went in and I tried to really carve a space for myself, and all of you can do that. Whether you're a PhD or a master's student or someone who's interested in applying yourself in a context, whether it's healthcare, whether it's marketing, you can choose to kind of build a space for yourself, because with AI really coming in, a lot of roles are going to be intersectional. So you can be an expert or a generalist, but really using networking as a tool to kind of create a space for yourself in whichever company is a very powerful way to approach this process. And again, quality over quantity, I think that definitely works.
Thank you, Santoshi. And I want to give the last word here. So Nicole was at one of our past events, and she hired someone from the audience to work at Bell. So Nicole, tell us what worked, what they did well.
Yeah, Adam told me I had to answer this question. So the event that I was at was actually virtual because that was the time that we were in. But what really stood out to me about Yasmin, who's the person who hired, who I still work with all the time, is kind of similar to what I said about my advice to get hired, which is I understood exactly what she wanted. I understood what she was interested in, and I understood why she cared about it. And I think like those I think it was like 3 minutes. Like I think we had a one-on-one chat for 3 or 5 minutes. It was very, very quick, and I knew that from that conversation that I wanted to talk to her again because her interest and her passion were super clear, and she did a really, really good job explaining like why I should hire her. I know it sounds like a sales pitch, which it is to some extent, but I think like those sort of 3 key elements were what really sold me. And then obviously had a couple follow-up conversations from that, but for me, like that was a very, her intentions were super clear, her passion was clear, and that was something that I latched onto.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, we promised some time for Q&A, so it's given the time. So we have one virtual. And just for the reader, if it's to a specific person, let us know.
So this one is for Wafiq. The question is, can you shed light on the importance of continuous learning and adaptability for someone starting a career in AI at Google?
Yeah, so actually, even at Google as an employee, they're always making us learn the latest technology. It doesn't matter which area you're in within Google. And I'm sure that's the same thing for other companies as well. One thing I wanted to mention is, especially with Gen AI, even AI itself, a lot of people actually don't know how to use AI in big companies. You'll be very surprised as you enter the workforce. People managing large teams are actually, could use a lot of help when it comes to leveraging as much as you can from artificial intelligence, machine learning, just even regular statistical models. And they don't actually know how to use it. And I say that because the knowledge that you come with as a student or as a recent grad or someone who's still studying is extremely valuable to someone who's been in the industry but just hasn't had the time to actually learn. And so I think like in your first 90 days, you can actually make a great impact just based on the knowledge you have coming into a new role. So I want to start there because a lot of us think that there's this huge barrier to entry because we don't know X and Y technology and framework, but actually you know a lot more than probably the average person at a company. For example, Cody was showing those slides. If you can understand those slides, you probably know more than 85% of people at a large company that you're trying to apply for when it comes to AI. If you know how a large language model works, you probably know more than a lot more people. And that's a good place to be in. When it comes to the continuous learning, so there's learning that you'll have on the job, right, which is amazing. And then there's learning that will differentiate you from your peers within your team. And that's the learning that you take outside of your work. That's the things where you collaborate with projects with people outside of your team, outside of your work. At Google, we have something called 20% projects, which is pretty cool, which is basically like you can work on any project outside of your core team that allows you to learn anything that you would like to do. If you're interested in sales, you can do a 20% project in sales and learn that kind of avenue. So there's that learning on the job as well. But outside of the job, I would always encourage you to have like 20% of your time allocated to a course. On Coursera that Cody mentioned, Andrew Ng's courses are amazing. I tend to actually retake those courses often just to refresh my memory. And then any projects that you can work on outside of your work, I think that's the best way to put your learning into application. And that's what you'll actually learn. You'll learn that a lot of AI is not actually, or kind of implementing AI is not actually the technology, but it's the people. Managing people, managing stakeholders' expectations is a lot more difficult than just fitting some data to an algorithm and making sure that I can predict with good accuracy. So yeah, learn on the job, learn outside of the job, and then put your learning outside of a job to an application, to a project, to a nonprofit, whatever it is, so that you can actually activate on your learning and show that through your learning you've actually built something that has an impact, not just within your core work, but outside of your work as well.
Thank you, Wafiq. If we have an in-person, otherwise, well, we can always, people are sticking around too. Oh, we got one here. Okay, let's do one more and then we'll do some networking.
Thanks for this panel. This was really fascinating, and I really appreciated the chance to hear all of your experiences and insights. Could you speak to the crowd about the use of generative AI in prepping job application materials? I've heard from employers that are really frustrated that they're all getting the same cover letters. What's your take on that shift?
I actually have a point to this. I love that you brought it up. So we're trying to set up an AI assurance practice and audit, internal audit at RBC, and we did this current state assessment of generative AI, and one of the biggest things that stood out was how extremely high-skilled jobs are more susceptible to generative AI risk. So the capital markets team hired a co-op who did so exceptionally well in his interview, and they brought him in, and they've gone and and the person who's conducted the interview had to go just say hi to this guy, because he's like the most brilliant 20-year-old I know. And he just picked off where he left off at the interview. He was just like, yeah, la, la, la. And there was no conversation. And they said, okay, maybe, he doesn't know. And then they were kind of vetting him out the next 2-3 days. And then they found a huge kind of discrepancy. It's like they were talking to ChatGPT and then hired this guy. Because that's actually what happened. With very high-skilled jobs, cover letters, resumes, a lot of the content can be generated using generative AI, and that's a huge problem companies face. So I think if anyone sitting here can go back and actually write a cover letter, and then use generative AI as little as possible and keep it as personal, as curated, authentic, almost tailored to the person you are, you stand out. It's so evident when you look at your cover letters, which has been written by generative AI, because of how flowery the sentences are and how weirdly articulate and unnecessary number of adjectives it has. Because in a cover letter or a resume, I think the biggest focus should be, did you speak to people and understand the job? Do you think your skill set and a mindset fit? Some of the things we've spoken about, do you know what you want? Like, why should they hire you versus any other data scientist or any other researcher? And I was surprised. I was very surprised that when I went in to a core business function in RBC, they had so many PhD scientists on the floor. And these guys are creating very specific generative AI products, and so it's a layered process. So I might be doing the AI strategy for it, but the people who are implementing it are data scientists, and in between there's going to be data science managers. So it's almost like a cake, and if you are trying to use generative AI to place yourself there, I would always say you create a template of what you almost bullet points of why you should be there, what's different about you, who you've spoken to, your personal story, and then maybe you can use generative AI to structure that out into content. But the story still needs to come from you. If there's an AI writing your story, then chances are it's written the same story for 500 other people, and it's very difficult to stand out. So use it as a tool, don't use it as the creator.
I'm going to probably echo a similar sentiment. If you have something, most of you are grad students and you've done research and all of that, I'm going to ask you about it. And the AI doesn't know, the ChatGPT doesn't know your research the way that you know. So that, honestly, to me is not the biggest concern. I remember when ChatGPT came out, I took our interview material that we had been using and I threw it into ChatGPT and I saw what it did, and it did pretty well. But at the time, it wasn't able to tell me why. I think it could now, but it's the same thing. I'm going to ask you why you did that, or what your thought process was. Even if I would rather get a 80% solution that you could explain to me than a 100% solution that the AI made. And I think that for me, as someone who interviews people and talks to people, like that's something that I'm looking at.
Wonderful. Okay. Can everyone give a round of applause to our panelists here?